How are you, friends? Niccolò Machiavelli, the famous philosopher of Italy, is one of those people who taught rulers how to rule and how to stay in power. Now, rulers have been following his methods all over the world, but there has never been a time in history when Machiavelli has not been controversial or criticized. You must have seen that power players often take the name of Machiavelli's principles to taunt their opponents, and they say that he is following Machiavelli's principles. This accusation is often made on MBS, and in Pakistan, too, you see that one ruler accuses the other. But friends, very few people know why Machiavelli wrote this famous book, The Prince, which is printed in less than 200 pages in modern font size. We tell you the story of Machiavelli and his book, The Prince. Niccolò Machiavelli was born in 1469 in Florence, Italy. But at that time, the center of the Roman Empire, Italy, was completely divided. Many small city-states and city-states had been established in its geography, and in these states, wars, disputes, fights were commonplace. The market for local conspiracies and looting was also hot. This whole region and Italians had become so weak that they were at the mercy of their powerful neighbors, that is, Spain and France. In fact, the Italians had become a symbol of a weak nation. For example, Italians do not even know how to fight. So, friends, this was a situation in geography in which Machiavelli opened his eyes in Florence. In those days, Florence was a small city-state in the geography of Italy. But even in this city-state, there was a constant game of cat and mouse between democracy and monarchy. At times, the people of the city established a public government. At times, the royal family took over the republic and established their monarchy. In the early days of Machiavelli's life, a rich royal family, Medici, is very famous in history. There are documentaries and TV serials on it. That family was a ruler of the city. But after a while, the people of the city overthrew the throne of the Medici dynasty and re-established public rule there. In this public republic, Machiavelli was very popular in Florence. He played an important political role in the city until 1512. The Republican government made him its ambassador. As an ambassador, he traveled to many remote areas of the country. He used to take cases of a city-state. In those days, Florence was a city-state. There were few democratic states. Most of them were princely states. In fact, even outside Europe, their rulers were called princes. At that time, there were large empires such as the Ottoman Empire, the English Empire, England, France, and the Holy Roman Empire. The rulers of these empires were kings and emperors, and there was the rule of a powerful family. In addition to mutual conspiracies, wars were also fought with each other in these empires and states. This is the period when there was unrest in India as well. Babur established the Mongol Empire after this, but this unrest was in Machiavelli's knowledge. Continuous wars were fought with the Ottoman Empire of Europe. The powerful Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Selim Yavuz, entered the Mamluk Empire in Egypt. The Abbasid Caliphate was completely destroyed. And then the Caliphate came to the Ottoman Empire. So he saw what was going on between the powerful states and the ruling princes in Europe. When Machiavelli went to any court in Florence, he observed the empires and states there. He also studied the culture and history there. He looked at the results of conspiracies and wars carefully. Observing all this, he then established his own opinion. What steps should a king or prince take to succeed? And what are the steps that lead to failure and create chaos in the state? Machiavelli continued to work for his state Florence. But in 1512, the Medici family came back again. The Medici dynasty started taking revenge against the important people of the democratic era because they had ended their rule. Machiavelli was now a target of the Medici family. He was accused of conspiring against the government, and he was arrested and hanged in the prison. He was tied to the roof with his wrists, and then he was suddenly cut off and thrown on the ground. He was constantly tied up, and because of the fear of falling again and again, his nerves and arms were paralyzed. And when he was thrown on the ground, his back was also deeply injured. After going through such painful stages, he was finally released. Machiavelli, who was in a bad health, could never rise again in politics. After healing his wounds for many years, he died in Florence in 1527. In 1527, Machiavelli died somewhere in Florence. But before his death, He wrote a book in which he shared all his experiences and examples. In this book, he told how a ruler, who is called a prince, should keep his state strong, and how he can save himself from repeated rebellions and failures. But this print was published in 1532, 5 years after his death. Now, while reading The Prince, we should remember why he was writing this book. In The Prince, Machiavelli starts on the fact that there are 2 types of rulers in the world. That is, the world in which he lived. One is the one who has got power because his ancestors were also rulers. That is, he is a Marasai prince. The other one is the one who becomes a ruler because of his influence or a historical event. Now he says that it is easy to rule for the first type of Marasai prince, because the state has already become used to obeying the orders of its family. There is nothing new for them. If this Marasai prince does not prove to be very cruel, or a big mistake, or cowardice, then the state's power players and the public remain loyal to him. It is relatively easy to rule for him, but it is not easy to rule for the second type of prince in the world. He has to face many challenges. First of all, Machiavelli says that the challenge faced by such a prince is a danger, that any time an old Marasai prince or an heir to the same family may return. In this way, the powerful people who bring this incidental prince into power also get upset with him. This also poses a threat to him. Those people who are supporting the new prince for their personal interests. But when the new prince fails to fulfill their interests or postpones it, then these people who have brought him into power start plotting against him. On the other hand, the public is not very supportive of the new prince, because their love was for the old prince and his family, whose rule they were used to, whom they were used to seeing the rulers. In this way, it is very difficult for the new prince to rule anywhere. Then he says that the second type of prince, who has gained power by his own strength, is somewhat secure, but the person who comes to power as a result of an incident is not secure at all. He often ends up under immediate challenges. Machiavelli says that the prince who comes to power instead of a Marasai ruler should be ready for a lot of hard work. The first thing he should do is to completely destroy the royal family as soon as possible. After that, he should immediately wipe out all his opponents. But he says that this work should be done as soon as he takes power, because the later these tasks are done, the more difficult they will be. Once the enemies are eliminated, he says that the prince should not commit any more murders. If he does this, then the prince's reputation will be a cruel and murderous person. In addition, he tells the prince to be alert about his security and people around him at all times. He should not let his associates get close to him. He should keep a strict eye on conspiracies. He should not show too much softness or too much severity. He will have to give people the impression that he can take any kind of action at any time. Now his personality can be of any kind. He can be kind-hearted. He can be friendly. And when the time comes, he can even throw his neck like this, that his forehead will not even get a scratch. He says that the prince should be bound by his principles. That is, whatever he decides, whatever law he makes, or whatever he announces, then he should follow it completely. If he keeps repeating his words, then people will stop trusting him. He will lose his power of speech. Whereas for a ruler, his power of speech is more important than the power of his sword. Machiavelli says that the prince should never keep an eye on ordinary people's wealth, and especially their women. If he does so, it will be a terrible mistake. By doing this, quality humans will never be gathered around him. The prince should be kind to people, but he should not be considered a coward, because the result of excessive kindness comes out in the form of indifference. This leads to looting and massacres. That is why the prince should be so strict and cruel when necessary, that there should be an order in his kingdom based on his fear. If people start being unfaithful to him, then think 100 times. According to Machiavelli, a cruel prince who has established an order in the state is better than a merciful prince who has anarchy and looting in his state. Another factor that plays an important role in the rise and fall of a prince or his state is the system of the state. The states in which princes rule are of 2 types. The situation of the Ottoman Empire was about 1513. This situation changed a few centuries later. According to him, the best example of a state where the prince or king is all in all is the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. He says that this is the best example. It is very difficult to take over the Ottoman Empire because the entire Ottoman Empire is under the rule of the royal family. It rules through its representatives. But if someone ever took over the Ottoman Empire, it would be very easy for him to keep it, like Turkey. Another example of such a state is the Persian Commandant Empire of the time of Alexander the Great. That is, the Iranian Sultanate, which was defeated by Alexander the Great by his emperor Darius. But when Alexander the Great died, there was no rebellion against the Greek occupation in the areas of the Iranian Empire. Alexander the Great's successors fought among themselves and divided the empire. But on the public level, none of the representatives of the Persian Empire rebelled, because the Iranian Empire was also the first type of empire like the Ottoman Empire, in which the prince was all in all. In contrast, I say that another type of state, according to the system, is an area in which the local leaders and representatives are powerful after the prince. It is easy to take over that area, because any local leader has the ability to overthrow the prince with the help of the public. But the problem is that it is easy to take over such a state because of the previous state. But it is very difficult to keep the occupation going, because even a new prince is as dangerous to the local leaders as he was to the previous prince, because the people consider the local leaders to be their everything. Therefore, if they get a chance to fight against any prince, they do not back down, because their loyalty is first with their leader. Machiavelli also repeatedly mentions human psychology in The Prince. He writes that conquering areas is a desire and wish of humans, and whenever humans have the power, they do so. For this, they cannot be blamed. In fact, he says that they should be praised. Yes, the problem is only when a prince goes to conquer areas without ability. So if a prince does not have enough power to conquer a neighboring state, Machiavelli says that he should not get involved in this mess. After this, Machiavelli says that if a prince has the ability to conquer an area, then he will have to use one of the three options to keep the area under his control. The first option is to capture the area and destroy it completely. The second option is to start living there himself and directly start running the organization of that place. The third option is to settle his people there so that the demography of that place changes in his favor. That is, the number of his supporters increases in that area. So what will be the rebellion now? But he also says that the fourth option is to give that place to the local rulers of his choice and take expropriation from them. However, this method is not very successful for Machiavelli, because as soon as the prince moves, there will be a chance of rebellion. Therefore, in Machiavelli's opinion, the best way to keep a city under his control is to destroy it, as the Romans had destroyed the central city of their enemy, the Carthaginian Empire. They had turned the city into a ruin, so that he could never stand against them again. Machiavelli says that those cities should be destroyed in particular, where people have become used to democracy and public rule, because it is not possible to keep control over them. If they are not destroyed, then he says that these democracy-loving cities will destroy the prince. The reason for this is that in such cities, people will always remember their old freedom and its benefits. And on the basis of this, the people will always be able to be incited against the dominant power. And no matter how much the prince benefits the people, he will never value that benefit against his freedom. Here Machiavelli gives the example of Pisa, in Italy. He says that this freedom-loving, democratic area was once captured by Florence. But since it was not destroyed, it was not destroyed. Then it happened that, after a century, they gained freedom. If Pisa had been destroyed, then it would not have been possible for them to gain freedom. According to Machiavelli, the prince should keep a close eye on the neighboring states. He should take control of the weak states in order to protect them. He says it is better to take control, whereas the powerful states should continue to try to weaken them, because any powerful state is a potential threat to the prince's neighbors. Then he says that the prince should take care of two things in the neighboring states. First, he should never allow any foreign power to enter this area for trade or military help. Second, he should never allow a single person to be very powerful in this area. But if any of these people become powerful, the prince's reputation will weaken. For this, Machiavelli gives the example of the Roman Empire. He says that the Romans never allowed any Greek leader to be powerful in their area. They killed him before he could gain power. Then he gives the example of Italy in the 15th century. He says that the Romans called France to help them fight in 2 cities. But France took over more than half of Italy. Machiavelli repeatedly criticizes the governments of France and Italy in his book The Prince. But overall, Machiavelli was impressed by France. This can be seen in the book. In The Prince, he calls France a good example of a good government in the 16th century. Machiavelli praises the French Parliament. You have seen our series on the French Revolution. You have seen that the French Parliament represented both the popular and powerful classes. This Parliament implemented the king's decisions. The king was not directly accused of any harsh decision. Everyone was treated equally. According to Machiavelli, this was a good institution through which the prince's government could be secure. Machiavelli says another interesting thing in The Prince. He says that the prince should not be unilateral in any war between his neighbors, because if the prince is unilateral, the state that wins in the end will attack him. Even the people of the losing state will not love you. They will not sympathize with you, because this will sit in the hearts of the losers. When we were dying, this prince did not come to our aid. Both the winner and the loser will be against the prince and his state. Machiavelli advises the prince not to be unilateral in any war between his neighbors. Instead, he should see who can win and support him. According to the prince, it is not difficult to change the system of any state. It is not difficult to bring about a revolution, because the people who are taking advantage of the old system become enemies of the new reforms. The people who support the new reforms do not stand with the prince in the war of life and death. Machiavelli wants to say that it is better to keep the old system running. Instead, a new system should be brought. And if you want to bring it, you should be careful step by step. Machiavelli's prince has the qualities of both the lion and the fox. The lion is very powerful. He has a very good personality. He is also very brave. But he does not understand the secrets of his path. He does not understand the secrets of his path. In contrast, the fox knows the secrets of his path. But if the wolves attack him, he will not be able to defend himself. So Machiavelli says that the prince should first keep his path clear like a fox. Then he should be a lion to respond to the attacks of the wolves, so that the wolves are afraid of his name. Machiavelli says that the brave people who try to be a lion just for the sake of pride, they try to show themselves as a lion, and they forget the fox's move. Soon people will be burning candles in their memory. Machiavelli explains the reason for which he wrote The Prince. He says that Italy has been badly destroyed, just like the Jewish tribes were destroyed, just like Moses helped the Israelites, just like he said that the Persians were being oppressed. So the great poet came and saved them. So he says that the situation in Italy is such that someone should come and save it. He should protect it from foreign invaders, and he should get it out of the internal chaos. According to that chapter, Machiavelli is giving all the advice in this book to the prince. He is giving advice to someone who will come and save Italy, and will give progress to Italy. Machiavelli wanted his country to get out of the whirlpool of problems. But when this book was published in 1532 and Machiavelli's fame began to spread, there were many objections to this book, which were also correct to a great extent, because a lot of cruel advice was given in this book. Most of all, it was said that Machiavelli's principles are funeral of morality, because he is thinking very short-sighted. It was said that the prince is only being given advice that will temporarily calm the state, but he will not be able to be peaceful permanently. The second biggest objection to the prince was that Machiavelli did not understand human psychology correctly, because man is not doing everything for his own benefits and the government. In fact, he is also merciful, and he is also devoid of the passion of friendship, and he does a lot of things for this reason. And these things are very important to keep the state strong for the alliance. Along with this and many other objections, some voices have also risen in support of Machiavelli. For example, it is said that he analyzed his era with realism. He was a victim of realism. He was not a victim of any idealism. In the era of Maramari, he gave practical ideas to restore a state, ideas that he had seen and read many examples of. He gave these examples repeatedly in his book. Machiavelli's book The Prince was right or wrong. No matter what anyone's opinion is, the truth is that Machiavelli's The Prince is still relevant today. we see it in different states. Even after 500 years, the situation is still the same. A person who adopts the methods of victory and defeat instead of morality in the game of power. He adopts a method by keeping victory and defeat in mind, and it is still said that he is following Machiavelli. In general, tyrants and dictators are called Machiavellian leaders. If you look closely, you will see that Machiavelli is following some decrees and some decrees. Which powerful leaders do you think are following Machiavelli's principles in the power game? Do write to us in the comments. Follow us on Twitter. You can also give your opinion there. Do watch the story of the prince of the modern era, Mohammed bin Salman, because it is also said that he follows Machiavelli's principles. Here you can know the story of Frankenstein's monster. And here you can know what is a utopia of an exemplary state.